everyone. Welcome to yet another episode of Marketing Demystified. I am Harpreet, your host for this show, and I have Vikesh Dhani as my co-host. I first of all would like to welcome our guest for today, which is Ambi Parmeshwaram. And before we start the discussion, let me quickly introduce the platform. So, Marketing Demystified is a channel for the marketeers, by the marketeers, and of the marketeers. It's a pro bono initiative taken by me and Vikesh for the benefit of marketeers, wherein we bring in experts from academia and industry to discuss different aspects of marketing. Today's topic is going to be personal branding, but before we jump to the topic, let me introduce myself. I'm Harpreet. I have over 20 years of experience in marketing. I have worked with organizations of high repute in the past, like American Express, IBM, HCL. Currently, I head marketing for Kangaroo Group, and I will request Vikesh to introduce himself.
Thank you, Harpreet. Hello, everyone. My name is Vikesh Dhani. I am a publisher and a marketer. I have worked with organizations like McGraw-Hill, Pearson, and LexisNexis before I started my own venture called Oakbridge Publishing. As Harpreet has already mentioned, Marketing Demystified is a wonderful initiative to create a bridge between the classroom and the professional world. We do it by bringing the best of speakers, best of practitioners, best of academicians together on this platform to talk about various facets of marketing. I'm extremely happy that we have a wonderful guest today. He's been an author for one of my former companies as well. So it's truly a pleasure to host him today. Brand guru, Mr. Ambi MG Parmeshwaran. And I'm sure this is going to be a rocking episode today. All of you are going to enjoy it thoroughly because he's going to talk about something which matters to everyone, irrespective of which profession, which function do you come from. Personal branding is very critical for everyone to succeed, and move ahead. So thank you so much, and I look forward to an interesting conversation today.
Sure. Thank you so much, Vikesh. Sir, I will request you to introduce yourself.
Yeah, okay. So thank you, Harpreet. Thank you, Vikesh, for inviting me to your platform. It's always good to speak to marketeers of the younger generation because I belong to the 40+ year experience generation. You people are all probably 20 years or less. So it's good to speak to you. I am an engineer MBA, and I started my career in 1979 working in advertising. And then I moved to marketing, and then I came back into advertising. And I was with FC Biulka as ED CEO till 2016. 2016, I got out, and I'm now a adjunct professor at SPJMR, Andheri, Mumbai. I also do brand coaching, brand mentoring. I also sit on a few boards as independent director. I'm also an executive coach. And I've also continued to write. And my first book, interestingly, what Vikesh said, was published by McGraw-Hill, Tata McGraw-Hill then it was called. It was a book called FC Biulka, Brand Building, Advertising, Cases and Concepts. And this was published in the year 2000. That's my first book. And after that, I've written 11 books. And this is the 11th book is what we are going to be talking about today, which is All the World's a Stage, a Personal Branding Story. So my books have dealt with largely with what I have been through. So all my books are basically rooted in the brands I've worked on. So case study books, which I wrote for McGraw-Hill, were all based on that. Then I wrote a book called, of course, I wrote a textbook along with Kevin Lane Keller and Isaac Jacob, which is Strategic Brand Management, which is used across the country. Then, of course, I wrote a book based on my research, which was on religiosity and consumer behavior. That's a book called For God's Sake, that was published by Penguin. And then I wrote a book about advertising called Nawab's Nudes Noodles, which is 50 years, India through 50 years of advertising, which is also a finalist at the Crossword Book Awards. I wrote a book about my own experience managing clients, called it Sponge Leadership Lessons from My Clients. And then 2 years ago, I wrote a book called Spring, Bouncing Back from Rejection, which was a finalist in 2021 in the Tata Literature Live Business Books category. This year, this October, I published my latest, which is All the World's a Stage, a personal branding story. So how did, I've written books largely about brands, about clients, about client management. How did I get to write a book about personal branding? So I thought I'll talk a little bit about that and then get into the more deeper dive into personal branding. So when lockdown came 2 years ago, March 2020, IIT Madras Alumni Association invited me to deliver a set of talks. They said, can you, people are sitting at home and, can you do online, webinar on branding? I said, it's a very good initiative. Why don't you get more people to do it? Why don't you do this once a week? They said, look, that's a good idea. But, since you're talking now, why don't you do more than one? Why don't you do 3? So I got stuck with doing 3 webinars. I think it was Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. So I did one on branding. Second one I did was on living the brand, which is about B2B branding. And the third one I did was on personal branding. So I delivered a talk at a consulting company on personal branding. I adapted that and I delivered it to this larger audience. And there was some 500-600 people who attended that live. What happened was interesting that some of the people who attended it were from companies and they called me to come and deliver the same talk to their senior executives. A finance, major said, look, we want our insurance, not our insurance, our financial agents to know about personal branding. Can you do a talk to them? So I delivered a talk to the agents of that, financial services company. And that's it. I said, look, maybe, there is an idea to write a book on personal branding. I'm not an expert. But I said, look, let me read up on personal branding. And I started reading books, articles, all that. And then that then, became this book, All the World's a Stage. While thinking of the book, I said, look, I should give it a different approach. I don't want to write it like a typical, to build your personal brand, do this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10-point formula. I said, why don't I write it differently? So the book is, it's like 5, 6 friends meet at their reunion in their campus. In this case, I set it in the IIM Calcutta campus, which I'm an alumnus of. And they then get down to discussing branding. One of them is a younger version of me, which is a guy from advertising and marketing. Another person is a very successful entrepreneur in the B2B space. The third is a lady who is a very successful HR head. The fourth is someone who is a very successful person to the financial sector. And the fifth is a person who's heading a large media company. So these are the 5 characters who kind of meet at this reunion, and they get into a quote unquote adda session on branding. Of course, the entrepreneur says, look, I've built my company, I've taken it public, I've done it on my own. Why do I need branding and why do I need personal branding? And that's all the questions are asked largely by him. And the others chip in to come to provide the answer. So it's like 5 people go for a walk around the campus, and over 2 hours, they discuss branding and personal branding, and a lot of doubts are clarified. That's the overall approach of the book. So it's a very easy to read book, not the much slimmer than some of my previous books. In order to give it a little bit more gravitas, the last chapter is on Mahatma Gandhi. You may say, what is Mahatma Gandhi doing in a personal branding book? And I believe, and I've said that, though he never probably talked about himself as a brand, but I think Mahatma Gandhi is the most powerful personal brand to come out of this country, definitely in this century. And how did he do it? and I've tried to bring analogies on personal branding techniques we talk about today, which Mahatma Gandhi used 80, 90 years ago in order to build his brand, and of course for a larger purpose, for fighting for the independence of the country. So the book is largely a conversation among 5 people. All the topics are raised by them. They argue with each other, they fight, they disagree, they break for a coffee, they have coffee and they have a new argument. Someone else joins them, he disagrees with something. So it's presented in a very conversational style. There is no gyan in the book at all. It's all largely conversational. And when you're reading the book, the idea is you almost become one of the people joining them for a walk. And you almost ask questions to them. Hey, you said that, but how does it work? So that's the kind of approach I've taken. And I think reviews have been pretty good. So I'm happy to talk more about it.
Sure. Thank you so much, Ambi. So we will go with the flow, and I will ask you certain questions on personal branding itself, since you gave a wonderful introduction to the book. And taking the cue that the entire book has been set up in a conversational mode, we will take the conversation forward. So I can be one of those 5, 6 people, and I will continue the conversation. So is personal branding something that is new? Like you said, that Mahatma Gandhi, even though he was not a student of maybe a B school, but he did practice. So before that also it was there, or you have given some more examples in the book?
Yeah, so normally when people talk of personal branding today, they tend to think that personal branding came up because of social media. There is so it's personal branding is all about social media. How do you build your personal brand? Start posting, some inane stuff on LinkedIn, and you'll become a personal brand, or post motivational stuff on LinkedIn and some food photographs on Instagram, and you'll become a personal brand. I'm sorry. Personal branding, which is why the Mahatma Gandhi was an interesting counterpoint, saying, Mahatma Gandhi became a personal brand when all this was not there, right? So even if you take the current era, the concept of personal branding for the first time was written by Tom Peters in an article which appeared in a magazine called Fast Company. And that article didn't appear last year or year before. It appeared 25 years ago. So the concept of personal branding itself is not new. So 25 years ago, the first big article came on personal branding. It's called Brand Called You. It was a cover story of Fast Company. And after that, there have been multiple articles which appeared in academic journals, Harvard Business Review, etc., about the concept of personal branding. So the long and short answer to your question is personal branding is not something which has been created in the last few years or in the last decade. It's well over 25 years of age. A lot of concepts have been discussed by academicians and have been argued and have been proven that personal branding is not equal to social media. Personal branding has been there for a much longer period.
So in the current era, I mean, that brings me to the next question. The current era, like you rightly said, most of us perceive that, you post something on LinkedIn and that is the way to create your personal brand. You do something on Instagram, you have so many followers on YouTube, you create a personal brand. If it is not equivalent to social media activity, and like you rightly said, it has been existing. So going back to the Mahatma Gandhi example, 80, 90 years, or maybe much before. How else do you think, can you give us few tips to the audience? How can a personal brand be developed?
Okay, so I think there is this myth that, to be successful, you need to create a personal brand, right? That's slightly incorrect. To be successful, you have to be good at something, right? If you are not good at what you're supposed to be good at, building a personal brand will actually be a disaster. So in fact, I was discussing this concept of personal branding with my colleague, Professor Janikram Murthy at SPJMR. And so he clearly, he conceptualized this nice 2x2 matrix. Either you're very competent or you're not very competent. And let's say that is on the x-axis. And on the y-axis, you're very good at building a personal brand. You're not very good at personal branding. Right? Suppose you're very good in what you do. You're very competent. Like Harpreet, you're a very competent marketing person, right? You're very competent. And if you do personal branding, you will become that much more successful. You will get recognized that much more, and you will get your rewards. Right? Suppose, Harpreet, you're very good at marketing, but you don't spend any time, effort building your personal brand. What will happen? Now, you will get promoted, but you will get your increment. It will go through a normal process. You will not get that extra boost to your career if you don't build your personal brand. Now let's flip it. And let's say that Vikesh, for a minute, I say, no, Vikesh is not actually very competent, right? So, but he says, I want to build my personal brand. Vikesh, forgive me, I'm just giving you as an example, right? So he's not very competent. He starts building his personal brand. What will happen is he'll get exposed even more quicker, right? And he will get reprimanded even quicker. Whereas if Vikesh says, I'm not very competent, but I'll quietly work, okay, he can actually survive in his career for a much longer period of time. So the point is, if you think by building a personal brand, I will get promoted, I will get a plum assignment, I will get a big increment, I'll get a fancy cabin, nothing of that sort will happen, right? You have to be competent. You have to know your job. You have to do your job, and you have to enjoy doing that job, right? And people should recognize that you're capable of doing this job. Once you achieve that level of competence, then you can start building your personal brand. That doesn't mean that personal brand is only reserved for CEOs and CXOs. No, a young executive can be a personal brand, which means he does a very good job. He carries himself well. He presents himself well. He speaks well, and he's somewhat active on social media, right? That is enough. When I do my executive coaching, one of the first things I tell people is that, what is your LinkedIn profile? Oh, sir, LinkedIn mein jaake bahut din ho gaya. Arey yaar, you're a senior executive. Right? Kam se kam, at least once a month, go to LinkedIn and update your profile. The minimum you can do. Because prospective employees are looking at you and going to apply to you, to your company, and they're going to search and look at you. So simple question is that everyone can benefit from building a personal brand. However, to benefit from building a personal brand, you have to be competent in your job. If you're not competent in what you're supposed to do, then personal branding is not for you.
Sure. So I think the basic thing which you have said, right, is that one needs to be competent. If you are not competent and if you work on personal branding, then that can be disastrous. Now, let us assume that a person is competent. Then in that case, what could be the few things? So you said that you could go and make yourself visible on LinkedIn. You could talk well. You could do your work well. Do you think networking can be of any use?
So we'll come to networking. Before networking, let's look at. So how do you go about building your personal brand? Right? Simple, right? You're competent. You're a good. You know your job. You do a good job, right? Then you say, look, I need to now build my personal brand. I think the first thing you got to do is to try and figure out what makes you tick. Can you describe yourself in 3 or 4 words? Right? You may say, I am very intuitive. I am very analytical. I am easygoing. I am humorous. Whatever it is, right? Those are the way you describe yourself, right? In 3 or 4 or 5 words. The next thing you probably need to do is to check if this is correct. I may think that I'm a very humorous guy, but no one around me thinks I'm humorous. Everyone thinks, I'm a boring guy, very boring to talk to. Then I may think I'm humorous, but that doesn't matter, right? So what are you? Can you define yourself in 3-4 words and reconfirm this? Do people around you agree that Harpreet is actually a very competent and a very analytical and a very jovial person? Do people say that? Right? Confirm that. Once you confirmed it, now you have a template. Based on that, then you develop your executive presence, your executive voice, and how you're going to amplify your personal brand through whatever you do on social media. Actually, social media comes after all this is over, right? After you've decided what is it your personal brand, what do you want to stand for, and what is your presence, therefore, how are you going to present yourself, and then how are you going to communicate, how are you going to write, how are you going to talk, etc., etc. And then comes what you're going to do on social media. Very often we jump the gun and start talking about social media before doing all this. The myth is people say, oh, building personal brand is very complicated. It is taking a lot of money, effort. No, right? If you want to spend money, you're welcome to spend money. But the basics of personal branding, it doesn't take too much effort. For example, I was doing this little television interview the other day. What is your executive presence? What is your presence? How do you present yourself? So, example I gave him was, you're walking into a room full of strangers. They are from your industry. They are in various industries. But how do you walk into the room? Do you walk into the middle of the room, meet someone, say hello, and then there is this famous book written by Eric Berne. What do you say after you say hello? After you walk in, what do you say? How do you talk? The other way of walking into the room is, don't walk to the middle of the room, walk to the side of the room and hug the walls and stay on the side. That way you're not going to develop an executive presence. Can you walk in to a room where there are 10 people whom you don't know at all? And are you able to walk up to them, introduce yourself, and start a conversation? Right? Now, that is executive presence. Some people can do it, some people can't do it. But you can develop it. You can work on it, right? You can, when I coach CXO level people, they say, look, I'm not very comfortable giving talks at big forums. So the simple advice I give them is, you have to, you're a senior level person. You got to learn to deliver talks in forums. That's part of your job, right? It also builds your personal brand. So it's critical. So if you're uncomfortable speaking to a room full of CEOs, then pick a low-hanging fruit. For example, you must be getting enough invitations to go to colleges or B schools or engineering colleges to give talks. Accept them. Accept them, wear a jacket, go and give a talk, right? You can even ask one of your executives to prepare, 20 slides for you to give a talk on. Right? Go and give a talk. So the big advantage of giving a talk to college students is that they already see you on a pedestal. You're already a manager. You're a manager in a big company called Kangaroo Group, right? You're a big person. So whatever you say, they will clap. Therefore, it kind of, you don't need to be nervous about delivering a talk to a B school. So you develop your comfort. You start developing your executive presence, and you start developing your executive communication skills. You need that. You need that to build your personal brand. It's easy to say, no, I am publicity shy, I don't do. That's fine. Then you'll succeed. If you're very good in your job, you will succeed. No problem. But if you want something more, then you have to develop an executive presence, and you have to develop an executive voice, an executive communication style, right? So that's the important part. The other thing which we spoke about, and Arpit, you asked a question about networking. Where does networking come in all
Play a
this?
role, yeah.
Now, in the book, the Shankar is a entrepreneur. So he says, look, I hate networking. I hate going to parties where people come and give their card and say, hello, sir, hello, sir, hello, sir. And he says, when I was a struggling entrepreneur, I used to go to parties and pick up people's card and he used to write to them, and I never got a response. So he doesn't like networking. The problem is that kind of networking, this going and meeting people, giving cards and taking cards from them, is a very low level networking. The real networking happens when you get involved in an activity which is different from what you do normally, and you get involved in it fairly heavily, and you develop a completely new set of good friends. So if you do that, then that is networking. So they call this diversity. You got similar network and you got diverse network. So this becomes a diverse network. So in the book, I've written about a particular incident. All of us know that Bill Gates set up Microsoft. He dropped out of college, and and he got a contract to supply software to IBM. Now, we know he got the contract and he made a success out of it. But how did he get the introduction? How did a kid sitting in a garage in somewhere near Boston get introduced to IBM to go and sell his software to them? The story is that his mother, Mary Gates, was part of the advisory council of a NGO called United Way. United Way is a very, very respected NGO, and she was very involved in being on their board. And in one such meeting, one of her fellow board members, whom she had got to know, called Jim Ackers, so he asked Mary, saying, Mary, your son is in college, isn't it? I mean, what is he doing? Has he graduated? So she said, no. He started college and then he dropped out, and he's sitting in the garage and he's saying, he's developing some software. So Jim Acker says, oh, that's interesting, because IBM, we are now looking at small computers, PC. We plan to launch a PC, and it looks like he may be doing something interesting for us. So tell him to come and meet our team. So Mary Gates tell Bill Gates. Bill Gates goes to IBM New York, meets the people, and then he gets a contract to write the disk operating system for IBM PC. Now that's he gets. Now how did he get the break? He got the break because his mother had a phenomenal networking skills. She had developed a very different set of people whom she knew, and through that she gave him the introduction. So I mean, that's just one example of building a very good, interesting, diverse network. So you may be, working as a mid-level manager in some company. So you get to meet your own people, and you may go to industry bodies where you meet people from your industry. But you can build a diverse network by getting involved in other things. For example, getting involved in a book club, getting involved in a cycling club, getting involved in your gym, or getting involved in a charity organization, or getting involved in a business school, going and teaching. Right? You can build diverse networks by doing these things, but doing them sincerely. Mary Gates was a part of that advisory board, and she took that job seriously. You got to take whatever you do. If you're in a running club, you're in a tennis club, you're in a hiking club, take it seriously. Start building, start enjoying it, and you'll automatically build a diverse network, which will one day be helpful to you. It's not that, because I joined the running club, I'll get a big job break. No, that's not going to happen. Right? But it'll one day pay off. But build a diverse network.
On that, Ambi, I have a question. So, for example, let's say you get connected with people on LinkedIn, right? And maybe, like you said, that you build a diverse network. So let's say you engage in a book club, or on LinkedIn also, or you get engaged in you network with people on common interests. Let's say you talk about marketing. Now, once the connection is developed, and that's a common question most of people have, once a connection is developed, you start interacting. Then how do you keep that connection alive, or how do you keep that network alive? Because there has to be some topic to talk, right?
Yeah, so which is why there is this whole thing about shared interest. Now, if, for example, we share an interest in marketing, now, how do you keep the network going is to share useful stuff once in a while, right? So that's how you keep it going. So if our shared interest is, let us say, playing bridge, right? So we play bridge together, or we go to tournaments to play bridge, or we share stuff saying, look at this hand, it's a phenomenal hand. I'll send you the details and, see, look at how they played it, right? So you got to, if you don't keep your network alive, that network is going to die, right? So the way to keep it alive is to what is called create shared interests and share them regularly without irritating the other side, right? So share them regularly so that that the network is available for you if in case you need to go to them for something, right? Like the way you contacted me on LinkedIn, said, look, I've got this, YouTube thing, can you do it? And I said, okay, send me the details. You send me the details, and now we're doing it, right? We didn't know each other, say, a month ago, right? Harshil Karya he's a legendary guy who's a founder of a digital agency called Shebang. Now, how did I didn't know him 4 months ago? He got in touch with me on LinkedIn and he said, look, I want to come and meet you because I want to, bounce something off you. I said, okay, come. We sat, we talked. I liked what he said. He liked what I said. And I invited him for my book launch. Okay. And we are friends, right? He shares stuff with me. I share stuff with him. So point is, even on LinkedIn, obviously there are too many people contacting too many people on LinkedIn, right? So there is a problem. But even in LinkedIn, you may say, look, I want to focus on something specific. And therefore, I will try and create my own group which focuses on something specific, which could be, for example, someone I know is focused on the silver generation, right? He runs a website and he entirely focused on creating products and services for the 60 plus age group, right? He came and met me because he read an article I'd written, and then he's in touch. He sends me a mail every 15 days, something comes from him. How did it start? It all started because he read some article I'd written, right? And the other day, someone came to me saying, look, I'm doing something for the old people. And I say, yeah, there is this guy, Mahesh V. He's got a website called, I think, Silver Angels or something. I'll connect you to him. So he said, yeah. I've heard of him. I said, yeah, go meet him. He'll give you advice. I don't know enough. Go meet him, right? So idea is to build a network of people who are somewhat different from who you are. If, let's say, you are in office stationery marketing, you will anyway get to meet people in office stationery marketing, right? So that those people But do you know people who are in a different field? For example, someone who's in the fashion industry or someone who's in food service industry, right? So you got to be open to meeting a diverse set of people and building a diverse network. I didn't know anything about the whole world of podcasting. My book came out, Sponge came out, and my publisher said, there is this company called does podcasting. They want you to appear on one of their shows. So I said, oh, okay. I mean, talking of 5 years ago. So I went and I met them and I appeared on one of their shows, very popular show called Cyrus Says with Cyrus, the virus. And I got talking to the founder. He said, yeah, this book of yours looks interesting. Why don't we do a podcast on the book? It just happened. And when we did a podcast, did 29 episodes. And then later we did something else on brand battles. And we were doing a second season, a third season. How did it happen? So you build a diverse network. He wants good content. I want a way of spreading my word. So it worked out together, right? So if you say, no, I will not try anything new, it's not going to happen.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
I just want to chip in and mention something, Arpit, and what sir has said. I think it perfectly resonates with me as well. Being a publisher, in different organizations, I've often felt the need to meet a variety of people from diverse fields. And one of the finest ways that I found to reach out to them was through events and conferences happening in their specific areas. So, as a publisher, I'm free to attend any event or conference where I have interest in publishing. So if there's an architecture, architectures, conference, I'll go and attend it. If there's a pharma conference, I'll go and attend it. If there's a, FMCG event or a marketing event, I'll go and attend it. It helps me connect with a variety of people with different interests. And I also agree with what Ambi mentioned about, in order to keep that relationship alive, in order to keep it engaging, you have to keep sharing something relevant for that person without anticipation or expectation of getting something in return. When you genuinely care, when you genuinely understand that, okay, there's some piece of information or knowledge that I have gotten, which is going to really benefit, this network, you should just share it, and some of them may be aware of it, some of them may not be aware of it, but they see you as a very thoughtful person who is thinking about them when he's coming across these pieces of information. As a result of doing this thing, without, of course, spamming them, you start, remaining visible in their mind, right? And when you're present in their mind, when they think of something related to your skill set, they are able to recommend your name. So, you are on top of their mind then. I have had friends who have, whom, I've not been in touch with for a long time now. But when they think of a publisher, they reach out to me or they recommend people to me just because, whenever there's something interesting that I think is of value to them, I just forward it to them, right? So it's very simple, but I completely resonate with what you said, sir. So thank you so much.
And I think I agree with what Ambi just said, that networking, just the example which he was giving, exchanging those cards, that is not going to help until and unless you engage in some meaningful discussion. So for example, in this initiative, I'll take example of this initiative only. When we started this, we have had about 14 episodes now. This is the 14th one. And in each episode, we have had 2 guests. Barring the last 3 or 4, we have had 2 guests. So with all of them, most of them have been my connects, but none of them I knew earlier. And all of them I was able to cultivate through meaningful discussions on LinkedIn. So I think that is very important as a professional, and even as a person, to develop and cultivate these networks, because it is not just that you need to extract something, you need to be equally contributing to them. So I think we spoke a lot about how to build, and some of the key tips also you gave. How does a strong personal brand help? Although that also you have touched, but how does a strong personal brand help overall?
The myth is that, only film stars and sports celebrities and, CEOs need to be personal brand. I think that's incorrect. I think everyone can become a personal brand as long as you're competent. If you're not competent, then forget it. Don't waste your time. If you're competent, you can become a personal brand. How does it help? I think in the short run, if you're in a mid-level position in a company, if the senior managers see you as a competent person, but also is able to carry himself or herself well, is able to present himself or herself well, you will get picked for the better assignments, right? Automatically, right? Compared to someone who does a job, but who's very quiet, who doesn't, speak, he cannot carry himself or herself well, then, you're not going to get that plum assignment. So one is, it'll get you plum assignments, better recognition, probably maybe promotion, maybe increment, all that can happen, right? So that's the simple one. The other thing is, as you go up the hierarchy, becoming a personal brand is today absolutely critical, right? Today, youngsters, before they, talented people, before they come and join a company, they actually look for who are the people working in that company. What can I learn from them? What kind of a person he or she is? And I remember I was being called by a big fabric major to give them some advice on some branding issues. So one of the things they said to me was, we saw your videos, right? And we thought, you had some very interesting things to say. Now, obviously, those videos happened because I went and delivered talk somewhere, and that talk got recorded. It got onto YouTube, and they managed to locate it and they managed to see it. Now, if I had not gone and delivered those talks, these people would have said, what kind of a guy is he? So One is, as you go up the hierarchy, building a strong personal brand, especially in the service industry, is a must, because that helps you attract customers. The other thing is, even within an organization, a strong personal brand will help you attract better talent to come and work with you. Saying, look, I want to work with Vikas because I know that, uh, I've read his video, I've read his blog post, I've read his video, right? I've seen his video. He looks like a very dynamic guy whom I can learn a lot from, right? So building a personal brand at a lower level will benefit you because you may get promoted, you may get increment. At a higher level, it will benefit you because you'll probably get more inquiries, you'll probably get new clients, and probably you'll get better talent to come and work with you. So building a personal brand has multiple benefits. I'm saying I'm keeping out, film stars and celebrities and politicians out of this. For them, that's their job. I'm saying,
Like a
doesn't
normal professional.
yeah, I'm talking of us. And I, for example, there is other myth that personal branding is only for marketing people. That's totally wrong, right? Personal branding is for a CFO, it's for a CHRO, it's also for an operations person. Personal branding is also for a lawyer, for a doctor, for a dentist, for an architect, for a financial advisor. Everyone can benefit from becoming a better, more conscious about a person. For example, you go to a doctor and you heard some good reports of the doctor. You walk into the doctor's cabin and you find it's all clumsy. And you see the doctor is wearing a dirty t-shirt. What happens to you? Right? So that's a simple thing, right? And you realize that, look, can I trust him? Right? So that's also personal branding. Right? That's what we call in executive, we call it executive presence and executive voice. It's part of that. So doctors know that. The better doctors, when you go in, many of them even wear a tie and a jacket. Why? No one wears a tie, but he's wearing a tie. Why? Because you want to communicate to you that I'm of a particular caliber. He has all his certificates displayed around him. Why? You don't need to see those certificates, but there's again to display that, look, I am a heavy hitter. I am a big doctor. It also sends a message to the patient who comes to say, don't waste my time, right? So, I'm wearing a tie, which means, I'm not going to give my advice for 500 rupees. It's going to cost you 5,000 rupees.
Right. I think I have had a lot of tips from today's discussion. I don't have any other questions to ask. Vikesh, you would like to ask anything?
Yes, one question which actually comes from the book itself. When I was glancing through the book, and I think it is Shankar, the character, which asked this question. And the question is that while we understand that personal branding is important, and at all levels, it helps at all levels. Um, uh, in a large organization, if everyone starts building their own personal brand, how does it impact the organization's brand? Are there chances that it could possibly lead to conflicting voices instead of a coherent strategy? And I know that you answered it in the book, but I would like our reader, our viewers, to be able to also hear straight from the horse's mouth that how you address that question from Shankar.
No, I think this is a if I'm the owner of a big company, I can say, look, I can build my brand, but why should my head of HR or head of marketing or head of finance, why should I allow them to build their brand? The fear is that वो brand build कर गया दूसरा नौकरी लेके चला जाएगा, right? So that's also fear. So I think Shankar raises some of these issues, but I think let me give it from my own example, right? When I was a senior manager in a large advertising agency called FCB Ulka, and my job was to manage my clients and also to look for new clients and also attract good talent into the company. So for that, I started writing articles in Economic Times and Business Line and Financial Express, Business Standard. Started writing articles in those newspapers. And when I get invitation to speak at a CII event or a FICCI event or an IIM Calcutta, Ahmedabad, I used to go and deliver the talk. But I was clear that FCB Ulka was paying my salary. As a result, whatever I did was always positive towards FCB Ulka. I would never say anything negative towards my agency. I will never say negative towards my clients, the clients of this agency, because then that is wrong. Now, then I'm building my personal brand at the cost of my agency. That is wrong. That has to be discouraged. So I used to always say positive things, and because you were there in Tata McGraw Hill, and I wrote those books, right, which are all case studies of our brands. Now, you may say, look, it looks like all your brands are great. No, I mean, they were written a particular way to make both the agency and the client look very good. I don't want to go and tell in an open forum that, this client, actually very difficult client, we had a tough time convincing him, but finally we fought with him and we convinced him. Now, I may be very happy saying all that, but next day I'm going to get sacked by that client, right? So I had to make sure. So if you're working in a company, you got to make sure that whatever you say as a part of your personal branding is positive to the company. The rub-off should be positive on the company. Okay. But once you quit the company, then you're up to, I still never say anything negative about my old agency or my old clients. That's not me. I always say positive about them. But it's up to you. Once you leave the company, you can say whatever you want. The other important thing is, if I am Shankar, I'm running an entrepreneurial company, let's say 1,000 crore company. Should I encourage my head of finance, my head of marketing, my head of IT, my head of operations to go and build their personal brand? Won't they leave me if they build? I would say no. I would say by encouraging them to build their personal brand, you're going to build the image of the company. That this company is not a one-man show. This company has 5, 6 senior people who are all top-class guys. This guy's written an article which appeared in Economic Times, and this guy went and gave a speech at CII Forum. This guy went to, World Economic Congress, whatever it is, right? So it builds the image of the company. And it also then helps attract good people to your company. That it is not only Mr. Shankar running a company. There are also 5 other people, senior managers there who are top-class professionals. So it's a very good company. I want to work there, or I want to give them their business, I want to give them business, or I want to supply to them, or I want to buy their shares, or I want to invest in that company, right? Multiple benefits can happen if a company encourages its senior managers to build their personal brands.
Excellent. Thank you so much, sir.
Sure. Thank you so much, Ambi. Vikesh, if you don't have any other questions, I also don't have. So I would like to conclude the discussion.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me onto your forum, and I hope your viewers find the discussion interesting. They can, of course, expand on the topic by picking up a copy of All the World's a Stage, a personal branding story, available in online and offline bookstores, and read more about what all I've been saying, and also the chapter on Gandhi. And of course, there are multiple resources at the end of the book with various useful articles and all that. All that is included at the end of the book. It's an easy book to read. It probably, by the time you take a flight from Bombay to Delhi and back, you would have read the book and you would have made your notes on what you can take out of it. The idea is to not just read the book, but read the book and make those notes to say, what do I want to do? What can I take out of it? How can I apply it in my job, in my life? Right. So thank you very much, and all the best.
Sure. Thank you so much.
I'll just add one line. I would also encourage. I don't know whether the cover is visible from here. Yeah.
Now it is.
Encourage all our viewers to gift this book to their friends, their employees. All HR managers should actually gift it to all the employees. Because it's a fantastic book, as mentioned. It's written in a conversational, tone, and there's a lot of value for everyone at all levels to derive from the book. Great.
Sure. Thank you so much. Thanks for watching this episode on personal branding. In this particular episode, we looked at certain aspects such as is personal branding something that is new? If you are a good performer, does it really matter? Is personal branding same as social media activity? What are the key steps for building your personal brand? What is executive presence and is networking of any use? We explored these things and many more. And in case you liked the content, then do like and share. Stay tuned on Marketing Demystified for further content on marketing. Thank you.